Ahoy ahoy to all you smooth sailors out there, and welcome aboard the DeckTales Podcast. I'm your host and captain, Sammy Catlin, and this is the show where we set sail into the captivating world of ship life, delving into the best and worst experiences of the incredible crew members who called the open sea their workplace. Whether we're navigating stunning destinations to weathering unexpected storms, our guests all have stories to tell that will make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even shed a few tears. So, if you're a seasoned cruiser eagerly awaiting your next embarkation, or just curious as to what goes on at sea, DeckTales is your boarding pass to a world of nautical narratives. My guest today is Mrs. Jayne Raithby, a former entertainment host and assistant cruise director who went on to work in theatre. Jayne was my ACD for what would be one of her penultimate contracts, and it was fascinating to hear her insights on why she left the life at sea behind. So let's anchor up and have a little listen. Hello, Jayne.
Hello.
How
long
are
time
you?
no speak.
Long time. long time. How long has it been?
Since I saw you, I don't know.
A lot of life has happened in between now and then.
Certainly has. It certainly has. I mean, I left in 2009, but I think it was a few years before that when I probably last worked with you.
Yeah, I can't.
They all blur into one.
They do. They really do. It's like I was just talking to somebody else earlier, and she's saying how literally you were caught up in the whirlwind of it when you were going from this ship to another country you've never been to. And it's a completely different ship to another ship that you got very used to, and you don't know anyone crew-wise or country that you're going to visit. And it's just when the dust has settled and the madness has ceased, then you kind of have to take stock, and it's like, oh, you're like that detective with the red string, kind of going, right, okay, what happened here?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think there was one year where I was just doing lots of different little bitty contracts. And I think I counted, I must have been on like 13 flights in 1 year, just between doing stuff mainly on the ships. But then I did something in Ireland for a while. And I just seemed to spend my life at airports for one of the years. It was like, where are we now?
It's good to do it while you're young, eh? Or, you know, at some point in your life, have that experience of feeling like a proper jet setter.
Yeah, I agree. And still to this day, when I speak to kind of young people who I kind of work with or come across at work, I always say go for it to them, because they'll say, oh, you worked on ships. What was it like? And I always say, like, when you've got no family, you've got no kind of ties, no bills at home, it's the best way to see the world, meet friends, and kind of, experience new things, really. So...
But how are you? You've got sproglings, a couple boys, more than a couple?
Twin boys. I've got twin boys. So,
wow.
Yeah. Spent the first 5 years of their life absolutely tired beyond belief, just kind of surviving the days. But they're now 12, going on 13, which does make me feel very old. But they're awesome, absolutely brilliant boys. I couldn't ask for better, really. And now they're getting older. It just gets so much easier. They just, they're finding their independence. They don't need us anymore.
You're over the hump.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, though. It really is, because you feel a bit bereft that they kind of don't need you for stuff anymore, because they're growing into young men, I suppose. But it means you have more time for yourself again. So
in a few years' time, you'll be saying, get a job on a cruise ship and leave me alone.
Whatever, as long as you're earning your money, I don't care.
Yeah.
He's like, stay at home, save your money. I'm like, no.
You can't wait for that day when they finally become of age, and it's like, yes, they can fly independent.
Yeah, they're good lads, though. I wouldn't. I'd keep them here if I could, honestly.
But can I say, Jayne, it doesn't seem to have aged you one day having children.
Oh, Sam, you flatterer! I bet you say that to all the girls.
Well, if I've learnt charm from anywhere, it's the cruise ships. You should know that.
Thanks.
But that doesn't mean it's not sincere. I mean, I was always kind of a bit cheeky with it, but I was, I'm serious. You look great. You didn't look like you've aged at all.
So do you. Cheers, mate.
I mean, I like to think I left the moniker of Sammy, the baby face, behind. Sunny boy, they called me on the Destiny.
Yeah, I remember you. Well, I mean, gosh, we were all young though, weren't we? But you were kind of baby faced and cheeky chappy is how I remember you, Sam. Very
Yeah,
friendly,
yeah.
always kind of easy to talk to, and yeah, pretty chill, I think you were, weren't you? Compared to
Compared to what the likes of
well, like I often kind of got a bit more stressed, or and I don't know, maybe it's but you were always kind of took it all in your stride, as I remember, just kind of all right, that was everything.
that's the Essex way.
Yeah, no, it's good. Seems like you're doing awesome stuff as well, which is great. It's all
Well,
interesting.
just to summarize, how many years were you on ships? What was your job?
So I think it was about 6 years altogether that I kind of was on the ships, but obviously, as you know, some contracts were kind of a little bit shorter where you'd fill in, then there was longer ones.
Yeah.
And so I'd do bits in between back here in the UK, which I think most people did. So I think it was about 6 years. It felt like 60. And so I started working as an entertainment host. So very much like what you did as well. So hosting game shows and doing all the fun activities with the guests. And then I ended up in my last role there was assistant cruise director. And that was kind of where I spent my last kind of few contracts as ACD before I finished. It was 2009.
Which in the entertainment department is one peg just below the top peg.
Yeah, just below the cruise director. But yes, I kind of knew I wasn't gonna stick around to be cruise director, if I'm honest. Like I mentioned to you previously, I was getting weary, I think, if I'm honest, for me. And I think people's ship careers or life varies. You know,
Yeah.
some do one contract and never to be seen again. Some do, if you know, you got those ones that you came across time and again, and then some make it their life. I see some of them on Facebook, so I know that there's some people who went on to like the river cruises, didn't they?
Viking.
So I know there's a few who do that now, which is great because that's a different kind of cruising. It looks really interesting, actually, like lots of history and you know through the rivers and seeing a lot of the different side of Europe as well.
It's a bit less commercial and it's a bit more intimate.
Yeah, which looks lovely, and it you know it's great. But then I also see some of them saying I'm leaving my family again. You know, I'm going away, even if it's just say 3 months. For me, like I honestly couldn't leave. You know, I'm not saying it's a mum thing because some dads will feel the same. But for me, obviously, when I met my now husband and then you know had kids, that definitely was the end. And sometimes I have these anxiety dreams where I'm like back on the ship.
Really?
Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
All these years later, you have these. Wow.
And it's a real anxiety dream. And it's kind of one of two things where I've suddenly realized that I've been away and I've not seen my children. And it's like horrible.
Yeah.
But then I have this other dream where I'm there and I've been in my cabin for like months and I've not done any duties. I've not been, and I'm like, oh my God, like it's real anxiety dreams. And I wake up like, oh Lord. So yeah, even now I still have dreams, but they tend to be linked to anxiety, if I'm honest.
Wow. That's a fantastic insight to your mind and how it works all these years after you've done the ships. Do you ever have, on the flip side of that, a dream where your boys have been particularly naughty and then you dream about one day getting a contract call up and you're like, yes, I get to escape.
Yes,
I can leave you for 3 months.
It's funny because actually saying that, I'm kind of starting to get itchy feet, and it's only been fairly recently. I think you may agree with this, Sam, but when you've got a certain mentality, when you've worked on, like I certainly started my career traveling. So I was either traveling around the UK with theatre, or then I was on the ship. So for a whole, you know, like 10 years of my life, I was always on the move, always with a suitcase, always going somewhere else. And then obviously all these years later, I've had a family, we've been rooted, you know, you're in a house, you're paying the bills, and I've been in the same job for coming on 6-7 years now. But the travel more than anything, not necessarily going on a ship, but the travel bug is really starting to come back. So I'm,
Hmm.
like constantly looking at, where we might go and kind of looking at camper vans and how much they may cost. Do you know what I mean? I don't think
Well,
it ever leaves you, that
but you're
kind
you're
of,
not considering taking the family on a cruise ship holiday then?
no, no. Because as a holiday, if I'm honest, it would be the least, it would be my late, like I would not go for that. It wouldn't be my type of holiday.
Why? Because you've lived that life and you just feel like you'd
Um,
have a bit of FOMO of what goes on behind the scenes.
yeah, I think you'd probably still feel like you were working, like you'd feel like you have to be saying hello to everybody and like letting all the other passengers go first at the buffet table. Like, oh no, after you. So I honestly think that instinct would come back,
Yeah.
that you kind of second class to the other passengers almost because it would kick in. But also for me, my ideal holidays are very much in the wilderness,
Mm.
backpacking, hiking, kind of away from
Mass
people.
tourism.
Yeah, because I think when you work in customer focus and working with people a lot of the time, I think actually it's nice for your relaxation, for me, to not have to speak a lot. Just kind of, so yeah, I look for different things.
Is your job now quite talking focused?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You never lose it, Sam. You never lose it. So I work in theatre still now.
All right.
So my job is talking all day long with people and people, to the point where like you get in a call, I'm like, can I be bothered at the minute to speak? It's great and it's wonderful. And it's again still meeting so many interesting people all the time. But you come home and you literally, that feeling where you're like, I just want to chill now.
That's completely understandable. What aspect of theatre is it that you're working in?
So I work what is called Scunthorpe Theatres. It's two theatres. We've got a small traditional kind of oldie worldy theatre, and then we've got a big 1,000 seater venue. So which is the Baths Hall. So I'm the community partnership manager. So a lot of what I do is exposing the community to the creative arts.
Mm.
Acting, music, drama, dance, all the different genres. I've just spent the weekend running auditions because we're doing our first ever county-wide like talent show, but it's quite
Mm.
a big event. So we've had lots of wonderful people auditioning all weekend, which is so nice because we're trying to find the hidden talent of
Oh,
the
so
yeah.
it's like Scunthorpe's Got Talent.
North Lincolnshire's got talent. It's bigger than Scunthorpe. Sam. It's
Bigger than
bigger.
Scunthorpe. Sorry, of course.
And surprisingly, it has. So that's good. We've got a show.
Well, you'd like to think there'd be a few, good eggs or something like up there. Do you know
Yeah.
what? I was chatting to Josh Nelson the other day.
Oh, Josh.
Yeah, I was talking to who else was in my team? Drew Scarl. I was talking to
Oh,
him
yes, Drew. Yeah, yeah.
and both of them said that you're going to try and get a private investigator to try and track down Dave Beatty.
Do you not know where he is either?
No, off
Where
the
is he?
off the
Where did
grid.
he go?
Yeah, sad.
Yeah.
I remember towards the end of our contract with him, he was experiencing some sort of God complex.
Really?
Yeah, he said it to me in those words where he
What,
felt
like an
like,
existential kind of thing? Like, what is life? What are we kind of thing? Or
well, I don't know exactly because it was such a long time ago, but I feel like there was an aspect of him that kind of felt like he was being pimped out to the guests in a palatable, easily digestible version of himself. I'm not sure exactly, but you know how when you join a ship and you're part of the entertainment team, depending on the type of company that you work for, it's like, okay, well, this is like haven at sea.
yeah, yeah.
What was it she said to me? Carnival was like the Walmart of cruises.
Right.
So depending on the company, it's like, okay, yeah, we're not like the classiest of ships. So yeah, if you're from Essex, play up to being from Essex. If you're from
Yeah,
Scotland,
yeah.
lay into it thick. But if it's a very posh and spirit of a 6-star cruise, then you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
really round down the edges and be a bit
Mhm.
more uptight, it seems.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe Dave felt like he was expected to be this caricature of himself. I don't know.
Yeah. Because it is performing a lot of the time, isn't it? I mean, especially in my opinion, he was super talented. You know,
Mhm.
he was a natural, one of the best kind of compares, you know, that I came across on the ships.
Yeah,
Just had that natural ability of comedy and you know, ad-libbing. Everything he did was brilliant.
yeah,
But I also think from what I knew of him, that he was quite a deep thinker. Like we're all, like you say, we're far more than just one layer or what we put ourselves to be for passengers, or on the stage you're going to be one person, or even with, you know, some groups you may be, like you said, you might put the voice on a little bit posher if you thought that it was needed, or then you kind of play it down. So you're always kind of playing roles. Even like I feel like that even now in work, depending who I'm speaking to, you change how you kind of are. And I think in our, if you've been in the jobs we have been, you kind of get, it comes more naturally in a way, but it's definitely not necessarily who I am. It's, do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
No,
like
I carry it with
I
me
am
now.
me, but you're kind of putting on a bit of show, aren't you, to do what you're doing? And it's possible that it became tiring. It did for me.
Yeah.
That was, you know, I like I said, I got to that stage on the ships where I just was tired of, or even just putting on a smile every day. I know that sounds a bit morbid, but just mean like just, you know, coming out your cabin as soon as you go from crew area to passenger
When the name badge is on.
area. Yeah, and you just got, I was just really, yeah, just needed to be away from it all. So it's possible, I'm sure there's more of people like that as well.
Yeah, but it's one of those essential skills, isn't it? To be able to adapt to the different people that you come into contact with. Like I do it in my
Yeah,
daily life. I've over the last 7 or 8 years been a handyman around London.
yeah,
So you get people who are a bit like cup of tea, and you're like, oh, cheers, darling, how are you? You know,
yeah, yeah.
and then the other one's going, we don't have any oat milk. Would regular milk suffice? And you're like, oh, that is quite all right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, that'll do. Yeah.
I'm an oat milk convert, so you know I prefer it. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you haven't got oat milk, I'm not going to spit in your face and say no. You're not progressive enough.
It's like, I mean, there's every milk now. There's
There's
every
every
milk you
there's
can
every
imagine. So, like, you know,
yes.
I like an almond milk on my porridge
Oh,
oats because it's really creamy. But yeah, it's funny, really, isn't it? The
who
world's
who are
evolved.
these hemp milk people? I've never met them.
Oh, that must be. Is that a southern thing? Because I've not come across that one.
No, there's rice. I think rice milk's quite good,
Yeah, not tried
but
that.
I'm not.
All almonds and oats is about as far as I
Yeah,
go.
oats in my wheelhouse. But just going back to Dave Beatty, if you're watching this and it reaches your ears, we hope you're okay. And if the family of him see this, our best wishes go out to you because,
Yeah, I'm sure whatever he's doing, he's rocking it. I'm absolutely sure.
yeah, I'm sure. It was my favorite contract.
Mm.
Out of all the
Yeah,
contracts I had for the team I shared with, I kind of feel like I joined the team in almost like a little bit into the contract, but we didn't all start.
yeah,
We didn't all start at the same time.
yeah,
I think I joined the team somewhere a few months in or something, and
yeah,
then
probably. It blurs into one,
yeah,
honestly. It blurs into one.
it really
Because
does.
there wasn't really a team I didn't enjoy working with. I mean, for me, I obviously did the early ships. For me were like the air tours days, like my travel ships. So my first ship was Sunbird, which became the Destiny, and Sundream and the Carousel. And I think in a way it's nicer in the early days before you were AC, I was ACD or whatever, you know, you got a bit less responsible, a bit less to worry about, or a bit more kind of, it's all new. So you get to get off the ship and do all the kind of tours and see all the places. But
Mm.
um I think for me, my favorite team ever was the Carousel. You know, when you just have that bond, and that ended up being like a really long contract. Like
What was the carousel?
Carousel
Gavin,
probably became another
yeah.
of the I get confused which ships became which, to be honest. It was one of my early ones, like back when it was kind of under my travel. So
Mm.
it was before it was like Thompson, like Tui.
So
But
that
that
was your first contract, and you'd put that one at the top of your
Carousel was
list.
one of my early contracts.
Yeah.
ironically, I wasn't a fan of the itinerary because it was the Canary Islands and it wasn't my favorite. And also the weather was really bad for some, like it, usually it'd be pretty good. And so it just felt a bit dreary. But the
Mm.
team, for me, we just had the best time. When you've just got that team that you kind of never kind of forget that contract.
Mm.
And yeah, that one was a standout one for me. And I think we ended up being on there for 8 months. So we ended up getting extended the contract for some reason. I can't remember why.
Well,
But
as a whole team, you stayed together for 8 months.
yeah, I can't remember the reason, but we ended up I think we had a choice. They kind of said, will you stay on for another couple of months? And most of us, I think, stayed. So it ended up being like a longer contract.
Mm.
But yeah, so I remember there was a Swedish girl who I was super close to, a few Canadians thrown in. There was another Essex lad thrown in. So we were all a real mix team and yeah, really kind of gelled. Do you know what I mean? So it was just such a laugh.
Are you still
Yeah.
in touch with any of those?
A few of them, like all on Facebook. But you know what it's like with Facebook. I forgot I was even friends with you on Facebook. And then I know who you are, of course, Sam, and you reached out with your message. And I was like, dude, is Sam on my phone? Because sometimes you forget who's doing what because it just doesn't show you. So
Yeah.
like there's a few on Facebook and sometimes you kind of see, don't you, what people are up to. There's one guy, TJ from Canada, who I just adore, and I love everything he stands for, and kind of we've been in touch quite a bit because he seems to share my thoughts on things. Do you know what I mean? So we often have a little bit of a kind of chat via Facebook about stuff. And there was a few who popped up on my 40th video. My husband put together a 40th video for me, because it was lockdown. It was the dreaded COVID era. So instead of having a big party, bless my husband, he put together this video and went trawling through all old friends who had mentioned and kind of contacting them through social media saying, will you send some messages? And so there was a few kind of old faces from the ships that popped up on that, which was so lovely.
I mean, that's an advert for those who say social media is the devil and it's all bad for mental health. It's like, well, there are some nice positives to it as well. It's helped us.
Yeah.
Do you remember Friends Reunited? That was like,
yeah.
my dad was reaching out to people that he went to school with, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And obviously,
Well, yeah.
Facebook is a place for people to reconnect over many years. You don't keep up to date with everything everyone's doing all the time because that's ridiculous.
It's how I met my husband.
Is
So
it?
we went to school together. So he was we actually met at school and we were in a school show together and we were kind of close. And then we didn't see each other for 12 years. And it was just through Facebook. And I saw like you do, see mutual friends. And I was like, oh, and got in touch and the rest is history. We have twin boys and he's like, what happened?
I'm sure it wasn't as quick as that. I'm sure there was a courting period.
No, but kind of. Well, I was actually on the ships when we first got back in touch. So there was like a period of a year where we just used to write messages through Facebook to each other, just kind of chatting about life and stuff. And he didn't want to meet me for ages. I used to come off I came off one contract and was like, I'm back in the UK. Do you want to meet? And he just went silent. And then I kind of gave up. And then finally he went, well, I'm kind of free now. And so and that was I still had another contract to do when I met him, and that's why I feel like I was pretty miserable on my last contract. So I was like, I'm done now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you feel like he was ghosting you because he thought maybe you were a bit of a flight risk and not someone that was worthy of being investing his emotions in? Because if he did, you might just be like, okay, lovely to meet you, thanks for the weekend.
He possibly thought that. It's a twisted tale, Sam. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I think he did say he was concerned that I wouldn't think he was as cool as he possibly portrayed himself to be on Facebook.
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Well, I've met those types before when they have time to think of their responses, and then they portray themselves as a Stephen Fry or a Hugh Laurie or someone like, I don't know, who's full of wit, and then they are obviously unable to live up to the expectations that they've created for themselves.
Social media.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but actually, luckily, when we met, I just liked him as he was, so we were okay.
Yeah. Well, no one's able to read off auto cue like that all the time,
No, and that I mean, this is where the ships is interesting, isn't it? Like relationships on the ship, because it's a real bubble, like when you live in the ship life, like 2 weeks feels so much longer. Within weeks you have bonded with, like you say, new people once again, and you're kind of living with them, you're working with them, you're socializing with them, sometimes having amazing experiences with them, seeing amazing places or hanging out on a beach in the Caribbean. It's kind of not normal. You don't usually do that in the first months of meeting somebody.
My two best friends I've known since I was 5, and we've never been on holiday together.
No, you don't. It's like, so it's kind of not real life in that sense. But and everything's kind of in this bubble, and your relationships develop really quickly. The friendships grow really quickly, because you're not with your family. You're away from your friends back home. You're away from all of that, and so obviously, as humans, I think most people look for connection, don't they? So you do kind of find that really quickly on the ships. But whether that stands the test after that contract, like you say, Sam, is, that you could have the friends you feel like you never want to leave, but then suddenly, 6 months later, you're on another contract. And, some you do, and I think it's the same with relationships as well. There can be relationships formed really quickly and quite intensely. But is that how it would naturally be, away from ship life and in real life?
Time is so fleeting that it almost encourages that quick turnaround relationship, friendship behavior, because it's like, well, we're going to be separated in a few weeks, months, whatever. We might as well just cram as much fun as we can in, and then pip, tally ho. Did you see that TV show that was called Wrecked?
Was it like a comedy thing?
Like a comedy horror?
Do you know what? I couldn't get into it, but I did try it because it was set on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I saw it advertised during the World Cup, and I was like, let's give it a go. And I was shouting at the screen, Jayne, like, the water in the background on the pool deck is not even moving.
Brilliant. Is that the only thing?
The duck that killed the guy in the corridor and drags the body through.
Yeah, I remember there was a duck, and I was like, what the hell is this all about?
Yeah, so I was like, oh, seriously? Like, that no one was around? No cameras caught this? I met the actor on set one day who played the main character, and I said, out of curiosity, the bloke that wrote the show, Wrecked, did he used to work on cruise ships? And he went, no. And I was like, yeah, I thought so.
Tell him he needs to make the pool move. The water needs to move.
Yeah, no, I'm just being very overly analytical.
You do. Yeah,
I did the same thing whilst watching Speed 2 Cruise Control.
Oh, but that's good. It's good action film.
Yeah,
you gotta suspend your disbelief in all things in that film.
Yeah, of course. Have you got like a scariest moment that comes to mind when you think of your time?
So I do remember, and again, this was, I think, my very first contract. We had a passenger on board who kind of became a bit of a stalker, and several things happened. I remember going, like you would host in the lounge on the flat floor in front of the screens and kind of do your game show stuff. This was on the Destiny, which was the Sunbird when I was on. And I remember hosting a show, and he walked onto the stage. He walked up to me, like he'd been drinking, I think, as well. But he was like, I just want to talk to you. I just want to talk to you. And the senior entertainment, is that what they called them? The senior host? I forgot the girl who was the senior, Sarah, said, just come off. So that I had to come off because this guy was just acting up. And then I went and sat behind the screens, and he came round the back of the screens going, just want to. And in the end, they sent me to my cabin. They said, just go down and we'll sort it. So that was all weird. And we thought he was a bit drunk and blah, blah. But then a few days later, I was laid on the crew deck, as you are at the back of the ship, sunbathing, having a few hours free, and looked up, and he was filming over the side, like filming me. And I was on my own.
When you looked up, did he change his pan, or did he?
No, it was like a horror film. He went, like, I literally jumped up, and when I looked again, he'd gone. It was really creepy. And then, so I started getting a bit, like when you're walking through the crew areas of the ships where there's all the weird corridors and you start getting yourself like a bit like if somebody came like down here, you I'm on my own. And anyway, it was all a bit weird, and yeah, very odd guy. And then a few days later into the cruise, he got disembarked. Apparently, there was another incident where he was in the disco, and I think it was to do with a passenger. Security got involved. Anyway, he was disembarked at the next port because they told me about it. But he was a very odd guy, very, very odd. And so that was weird because I was very young. That was my first ever contract, and just creepy. Do you know what I mean? Like when they're just walking up to you and just not kind of, backing down. It's like he wasn't right in the head. Well, he also said he was best friends with Robbie Williams, which might have been true, but I don't know.
So what?
Yeah. Why did you tell us that?
If it's true or it's not true, so what? He's not here.
Yeah. So that was pretty creepy, but I didn't really have any other terrifying moments, I don't think. I remember getting complaints because somebody wanted to play basketball, and sometimes we used to open the sports deck at certain times of the day, but they were losing all the basketball, so we couldn't let them play this basketball. We were in like this great port somewhere with all these amazing things to see, and this guy was kicking off because his boy couldn't play basketball, like because we weren't allowed to give him that basketball. I remember getting woken up in my cabin. You sometimes try and grab naps like wherever you could. So, it was sometime in the afternoon. I was trying to have a nap, and I got called on the radio to go to the library because even though there was millions of board games out, every board game under the sun, the one board game that these passengers wanted to play was still in the cupboard. Probably had half its parts missing, but they called me all the way from my cabin to come up to the library because the one board game that they wanted to play was locked in the cupboard. And when it's those moments where you go, oh my God.
If it's under lock and key, then it's probably because it hasn't got all of its parts.
It probably had its bits missing, but I was half asleep and I just took it out and went, there you go. But I remember they didn't like to see crew eating. Like I remember, because we sometimes could eat in like the Lido area and things like that. Yeah. And I remember it was somebody I was working with went to get a piece of dessert, and the passengers were tutting loudly and saying, I was going to have that. We were like, they will literally bring more food in seconds. Like it's on repeat, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the guilt of eating in case the passengers ran out of food, God forbid, because there wasn't a lot of food. So there was a few like that where they just didn't like to see you, like they thought they would miss out on something when there was just tons, as you know, of food. And
a lot of it goes to waste anyway.
Yeah, I remember a few complaint, really grumpy when flights have been delayed, on embark day, and they take it out on you if you were like the first person in a uniform.
They say the name badge, and that's a target on your chest.
Yeah, I remember them being pretty brutal, as if we'd been responsible for all the flights been delayed and everything in between. I think sometimes they didn't realize you would then be on the ship with them because then by the end of the cruise, they'd be like smiling and going, oh, you've done a really, really good job. Like as if to say, I'm really sorry that I was a nasty booker at the beginning of this cruise. Didn't know you were coming with us.
It's the same. So it's the same when they get the bus from the airport, and obviously when they arrive at the terminal, and you do the little embarkation speech, and they think that your job is to basically just be there for the bus embarkation,
kind of like a rep. Yeah.
Not it's like no. I live on the ship. It's like okay.
But with that, on a positive, there was so many lovely passengers that would come on, as you'll know, repeat cruisers who it was a joy to have on, and sometimes felt like home from home. And they'd sometimes bring you treats, they'd go, oh, I've brought you them tea bags, all that chocolate that you're missing, and it was lovely because they were thinking about, and what you've got to remember is for them, some of these staff absolutely make their holiday, don't they? And they come back and they look for those people. And it felt nice sometimes seeing, like those repeat, especially if you did genuinely enjoy their company. A lot of them were lovely, just up for a good time, weren't they? Because they're not all moany, but, there was lots of lovely families. But, I think that was one of the things that became a bit wearing, if I'm honest, is that kind of feeling you've always got to be not second class, but at somebody's beck and call. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to put the smile on. You've got to let them go first. You've got to, not that, it stays with you all the time. And if you're naturally a polite person, it kind of, you do it anyway. But, it was just like, I'm very much, especially as I've got older and wiser, I like to think, I'm very much against kind of hierarchy, and there's a lot of that on the ship as well with your officers and this kind of, and I'm not one for that. Even now, in the job I do, there's kind of an expectation of that, and I just don't like it. And I believe that if people treat you kindly and with respect, then you do the same back. And but there's this kind of, just mean like if they're rude, why should I have to sit and listen to this? Yeah, it's your job. But I think as I've got older, I've got less time for it, if I'm honest. So
Mm.
I think, like in the job I do now, I tend to say my piece. Even though we're customer focused and I know how to do it in a nice way and
Yeah.
respectfully, I think it's not hard to be kind and say things in a nice way or ask for things in a nice way. And I would never go to any place, any venue, any holiday, anywhere, and expect this kind of, this kind of, you will do what I ask, this servential kind of bowing down. Yeah. And that got a bit tiring for me, I think. That kind of, I felt like saying my mind a lot more by the end.
And as you alluded to earlier, you kind of saw into the future a little bit, like, I don't know if I can have a family and not be able to see them. So that might have been
Oh God, yeah.
another big
Yeah.
factor for your reason to choose to not go into being a
Yeah.
cruise director, because being a cruise director is like one more step towards permanence.
Yeah. And you almost hear a few stories about some people who had a little bit of a breakdown, especially in the early days. It might have just been, it might have been myths, but
Well, we love myths, we love myths, we
I
love
can see how
rumors.
it would happen, because it's a world like no, it's really hard to describe in a way. And I guess this is partly why you're doing this, to dig into what that life is really like.
Mm.
But
I'm just interested to hear what the worst and best bits were for other people, because we've all got
yeah.
our own experiences to share, and it would be nice to have a place where they were all in one place.
Yeah, yeah. I think, for me, honestly, truthfully, I think in the end I was quite depressed. I think my mental health was quite low by the end. And
Yeah.
nowadays it's spoken about so much. But if back in like 10 years ago or whenever before I left the ships, I don't think mental well-being was discussed. This is a new thing, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Like in
And
recent years.
it wasn't even that long ago, but it's trending a lot more. We've got online
Yeah.
mental health therapies like BetterHelp, and it's just there's a lot more concern over it now, and people
Yeah.
trying to tackle it.
But it's interesting because actually I was thinking about this after you'd got in touch, and I was saying, oh God, there's a lot. I'd probably, I remember some really kind of down times for me.
Mm.
But I was interested. I thought, I wonder if it's different now on the ships and whether they have more in place for people for
Yeah.
their well-being and their mental health. Because you have a doctor on board. So if you get poorly, you get a jab, or you've got, but I don't remember there being anybody there in terms of support for mental well-being. And actually, a lot of these people who go on the ships are very young. It's a lot of young entertain from our, from certainly from the UK. It's a lot of young entertainers going away for the first time, whole new world, being away from family, the pressures and being, in what it is in the ships, but also, that way of life.
Yeah.
Actually, is there well-being now on the ships where they can talk to somebody, or maybe there is, because it's been a few years now.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
obviously a few years, so there must have been a gradual sort of a curve
Yeah.
towards improving things.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go back to 2006 to 2010, which was my 4-year period, don't recall ever really getting called in to have a chat about my mental health.
No, because I
No.
don't, like I say, it's a new thing.
Yeah.
I think it's more I mean, for me, again, it's probably just with getting older and stuff, but like it probably is. I wish I was as wise as I am now.
How are you in yourself today, Jayne?
I'm really good, but I was just going to say, it was like I'm super into my fitness, and I find it really good for my kind of like well-being. Just mean like I love my fitness. So I think the two come hand in hand, actually.
Mm.
On the ships, a lot of drinking. I mean, you can go down a very windy path, actually, and the parties and everything. But it was kind of just part of what it was. But it's a false kind of energy and it's a false kind of happiness. Do you know what I mean?
You just reminded me of something actually that I haven't thought about for a while, and I think I was filling in for Gavin
Yeah,
for Secrets and Lies because he had to go home for something. So I had his jokes or his
yeah,
cue cards, and I was told by whoever to make them my own, and it went down so well. Everyone who was on stage with me was like, "That was the best it's ever been" after the show, and I
yeah,
got like a little bit like, "Yeah." I ended up doing shots and shot in like full WKDs in the bar with
yeah.
the guest act comedians for the week, and I was like immediately pulled aside by the boss and sort of told like, you had a good night tonight, but don't fuck it up. Don't let this go to your head. All right, you still got a
Yeah.
long way to go.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And like, but again, when I think back, you are young. I was young, like your 20s, you think you know it all, but you don't.
Mm.
So, you are still very young and, discovering the world and things. And if I was to go back, it'd be nice to go back with the head I've got now. Do you know what I mean? Like with the kind of the maturity you have and the kind of, I think lacking in confidence when I was, when you first go on the ships, there's that confidence thing and you're kind of faking it a bit, and, you're doing your game shows but there is always that anxiety there a little bit.
A
You're like,
little
oh
bit.
God. And
But you've been employed because essentially you passed that phase of
yeah,
not
so
not looking awkward. Some
yeah.
people I worked with, I'm thinking to myself, how did you get a job as an entertainer? Because you call bingos like you call bingo like you're delivering a flipping eulogy. Do you know what I mean? And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, well maybe they wanted someone really dry just to kind of balance out the team a bit. Because this guy's off
Sometimes,
the
yeah.
this guy's off the rails and this guy brings it back down here.
Yeah, I
I
do
don't
know.
know.
Yeah, there were a few like that where you just thought, were they struggling?
It was
Struggling.
it was a slow week for auditions that week.
Yeah, yeah, I do get that. And but even now, in the doing what I do, I still sometimes think that. Do you know what I mean? When I see some people on stage and things, I'm like, really? But for the most part, they're very, very talented. But yeah,
And
I
then
think.
there's those who come to the stage with maybe a little bit too much confidence.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, well, the work we do now is so mixed. So we get lots of bands, touring bands, musicians, but we have all sorts going on. So, you get a lot of compares coming in to do awards, like awards ceremonies and
Mm,
big things like that. And there's some absolute naturals,
yeah,
and then there's some that you just think, like I forget that I was a compare, just me. But I think I think I could put a bit more energy into that, or a bit more kind of, you just kind of go. I think they just hire you because you're the only one they know of. Just me. Like, they'll
yeah.
just get the same people back, and you think, hmm. So
Oh,
yeah,
I remember there was one lad. I went to uni years later, and I did a BA, bachelor's degree. And there was a kid on my course. I was one of the oldest on the course, Jane, and I think I was 26, 27 when I did my BA.
gosh,
And so a lot of the people in my course were, as young as I was when I joined ships. And there
yeah,
was there was one kid who basically came from a privileged background, thought the world shone out of his backside. And one of the because we were doing music business, so we helped set up music events, and some of the people on our
yeah,
course were like performers as well. And this guy was like, full of confidence and thought he was like the next Tupac or
yeah,
whoever
yeah,
whoever you idolize as being one of the great rappers. He thought he was as big as. He went to a show, did a poor act, basically
yeah.
got booed and basically tried to throw a chair at somebody in the audience in the middle of his act.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
and then I found out that he joined Carnival and became a DJ. And he didn't last very long at all because he was drunk and drinking and doing all
Yeah,
kinds of nonsense, So
yeah.
yeah, that it's not for everybody. And if you want,
No, no.
if you're a bad egg, you're a bad egg. You will be found out and you will be sent home.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. And I think that was really everybody I worked with. There wasn't many. I can't remember, just mean. I always,
No,
the
yeah,
people we worked with, generally were great. There's just the odd ones, aren't there? That you think, how were you here, or what, what was going on there? But
Did you bribe somebody?
yeah, just
Yeah,
like
yeah. I did try writing a sitcom based like on the cruise ships. I wrote it in the sort of in-betweener style as
yeah,
best I could. But one thing that's difficult when you're writing is like you need a renewable story engine. And
hmm
obviously if you're changing hands with new people all the time because it's the
yeah,
end of their contract, then you can't really get too attached to characters.
yeah.
And so it
But
became
it's a
quite
good
difficult.
idea.
It's a good idea, but I struggled to write something that I could do justice to. So
Yeah.
that's why I wrote the first book.
It's
And
interesting because I feel the same about the venue I work for now. I feel like I could write a series based on the characters that work in the venue because they're so interesting and hilarious and
yeah,
like. But yeah, it's just there's just so many characters and the situations that arise day to day.
mm,
Where I work now reminds me a little bit of the ships because it's a big venue. There's lots of departments. When I first came to the venue and walked around, I went into the kitchen area. The smell reminded me of the ships. It was
oh
so
wow,
weird. Like that the kind of galley smell, that
yeah,
kind
yeah, yeah.
of smells are really emotive, aren't they? Sometimes you get that kind of memory from, like, for me, like a smell. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that. And then there's the smell of the kind of cleaning materials. So like as you go down the corridors when it's been really cleaned and just certain things, not so much now, but like when I first joined this venue, I was like, it kind of reminds me of the ship, probably with the
Mm.
different departments and the smells and things. But
And even
um,
certain smells on the ship at the time would remind you of other things. Like if you
and
went to
some of the
the
ship,
if you
yeah.
if you went to the garbage disposal room, then you felt like you were on a farm.
I tell you what, the smells of some of them old ships, bless them, were like there was nothing like it. You can't describe the smell of some of the ships when you used to first come back on board and you go, I feel like I'm home. Because that kind of smell, but I can't describe it.
Yeah, it did sting the nostrils a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, bless them. It was very unique.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, there were certain ports that I just loved getting off.
Mm.
Barcelona was one of my favorites. I just loved Barcelona.
La
Um,
Ramblas.
yeah, I just loved it. I loved the shops. I liked the kind of mood there. The Med was probably my favorite overall for the different ports.
Mm.
Compared to say the Caribbean or the Canaries. I liked
Interesting.
the ports in the Med. Obviously, then you got some that the ports were absolute horror holes, and if that was your first experience of the country, you'd be like, what the, like Civitavecchia
Why are we
in,
stopping here? Yeah,
yeah,
Civitavecchia is a
like,
good example.
yeah, like, oh my God. I remember, I think my mum and dad came on, was it that one? But a lot of the ports were rubbish. And I'd said to them, you're going to get a really bad impression. But, you kind of have to go further than that to,
This is the port that basically is the terminal that takes you
yeah,
to the place that you want to go.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
really worthworthile sort of looking around
yeah.
and exploring
Like,
all of what
was
Civitavecchia
it
has to
Morocco?
offer.
Like some of the African ones, you'd just be like,
Yeah. But
just a
if
bit.
if we name these places and people that happen to be from these places hear us talking about their place and slandering
Just
it,
the port.
we're sorry, people. It's just that you live next door to Rome. It's a lot to deal
It's just
with.
the port. I'm just talking about the port. And
Yeah.
I live near, not in Scunthorpe. So I can't, I'm allowed to criticize other places because I'm from Crapple. So I'm allowed to do it. I don't get offended. But yeah, but again, it was lovely because the crew used to pick their spots, didn't they, to go and eat. So ports almost became referenced by food, like
Mm.
that you would go to a certain place, Naples. I remember going for it was pizza at Naples, or the best, the restaurant everyone went
Gelato.
to. Yeah, and so you got that kind of, it was food. It was like, okay, it's this port, we're going for food, or it kind of defined the ports in a way. It was like where the best kind of seafood pizza was, or something like that. I remember like Jamaica feeling scared a lot of the time. I think I got off the plane when I went to board the ship. I wasn't with the team. I started that contract late. Like you say, it was one of those where I was going in later. And the port agent used to meet you, didn't they? Like, so if you were, they'd come and you'd have like details. And I remember coming out the airport in Jamaica, and the first thing that happened was a guy came up to me and said, "Do you want sweets?" And he had like a bag of, it must have been drugs. And I was just like, "No, thank you." But again, I was quite young, just on my own in Jamaica going, where's the port agent? Like, I'm quite scared. And like, I remember having a stopover there. And the crew went out, and I remember literally walking down the street and cars coming past with the windows up and like music going, like gangster style, and I like blacked out windows. And I was like, I don't feel very safe. Get me back to the ship. So you have those memories, don't you, of those kind of things. I remember a woman offering to buy my hair. Again, I think that was Morocco, maybe, where I'd got off the ship, and she was asking how much my hair would cost for them to buy my hair.
She didn't offer you a camel for it then?
No, she said how much. I was like, what are you talking? But yeah, no camels. But
because you did often hear people offering a camel for certain, like, I buy your wife 2 camels.
Yeah, 2 camels. But like, it's interesting because it's different. It's just different worlds and different cultures, isn't it? And obviously, you only get a tiny taste of it on the ships. That's the thing as well. You're not really spending time in that country. It's just a tiny bit of going on an excursion, or
you're not going on the off-beaten track. You're going on the most trodden path.
Yeah, definitely. And then all the passengers swarming back for lunch, for the buffet lunch.
Yeah, right. You're going to enjoy the local cuisine? No, I've paid for all you can eat.
And that's what I love. That's what I was saying, why I could never do a cruise for my own holiday, because I would love to go and eat the local food, go off the beaten track, and, do all of that kind of exploring. You don't really get that chance when you're on a ship. It's just kind of fleeting, isn't it?
Do you have any standout moments that are kind of like, oh, that was really embarrassing? That you're willing to tell?
I'm not willing to tell.
No.
Definitely.
Well, if you wanted to repackage it as someone that you saw it happen to.
No, honestly, I think a lot of those embarrassing moments were when there was too many drinks in the crew bar. Honestly, so I don't remember them properly, but I've blocked them. Honestly, I've put them into like this compartment that
are they part of your anxiety dreams from time to time?
Possibly.
I'm not going to force them out of you, Jayne.
It's fine though. It's fine because it's a journey. Life's a journey, and I think the ship is part of my life where there was amazing stuff and then not so, just mean. But that's what's good about it is it's kind of there and it happened, and I wouldn't change it because that was part of my experience in life that you live, isn't it? So I do remember getting really poorly with the old kind of D and like the diarrhea and vomiting, and I was double hosting a quiz. But it wasn't, like we used to have the early evening quizzes and then game shows and things like that. This one was like a main quiz. It was like the main, and you used to co-host it. It was like a big quiz, and it was lots of different subjects and different rounds. And I got that, that horrible, relentless tummy kind of gurgling, like where you knew it was just getting worse and worse, and felt like it was going to be both ends. And I was trying to host, and I must have been white by the end. And in the end, I had to say, luckily there was another host on the stage, and I said to him, I've got to go back to my cabin. And I barely, and then I didn't leave for like 3 days. I was put into isolation because I'd got the kind of bug.
The norovirus.
Yeah, like I literally was just about throwing up, and the other end on stage, and I was like, I've got to get. I'm proud I got back, but I remember just never feeling so, because you didn't want to leave in the middle of hosting something, but you just, when you just know it's not gonna go away. I was like,
I never got to that point, but I was only sick on one occasion, or I was feeling really down, and my old senior was hosting Deal or No Deal, and he needed someone to come upstairs and be a moving mic stand, because he was one entertainer short. And I was basically just like coughing my guts up. And I was like, "Are you serious? I'm in bed. I've got the sweats. I can't stop coughing. You want me to stand over guests and just be like, yeah, it was horrible.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did it. I did it.
God.
That was the only real occasion where I had to kind of, soldier on. But other than that, I was pretty healthy most of the time. Amazingly, considering my diet and fitness routine.
Same. It was just like living on adrenaline, just like keep going. Because I do really remember feeling poorly when I get home sometimes, when you just stop and you just kind of like, that's when it used to hit, kind of get burnout a little bit. But yeah, I do remember that one was pretty rough. Because it's not pleasant, obviously. I remember like crying and rocking in my cabin going, please God, just make it stop. Do you know what I mean? To the point where there's nothing left. And like I was drinking water because I needed water, but then it was just coming out, whatever. It was awful. Really bad one.
Was you ever in like any emergency situations?
Yeah, I was on the ship, but I was on as a passenger. So I was in a relationship, and so I was back on the ship, but as a guest. And it was during the crossing across to the Caribbean. And it was in the news, I think. I was in the cabin and didn't really know a lot of what was going on, but the ship responded to an SOS call. So I think it was a couple who'd got into trouble on like a yacht, kind of one of these kind of nice yachts that they'd, I think, loaned out, whatever. And they had to rescue this couple. And I can't remember where they were from, but they did the whole rescue, lowered the boat, got the couple in. Because when you're the nearest ship, you have to respond, don't you, if you're the nearest vessel? So they responded. Yeah, but all I know is they got the passengers on board. The passengers stayed on the ship and came all the way to Barbados. It was in the paper, about the cruise ship rescue.
I just remembered another one that was in the papers, and it was about a woman who was pregnant and gave birth to her child on the Destiny, and she didn't know she was pregnant.
I think I heard about that as well.
So the paper's headline read, Destiny's Child.
Oh, of course. Boom.
Mic drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think you've got many more stories that you're willing to divulge?
Maybe not. The problem I've got, Sam, is I've got to get the boys sorted for bed soon.
I understand that, of course.
So probably not in, I bet there's been more exciting ones, but it's been very good reminiscing, I have to say.
Glad that you had fun.
It's really good. Like, it's nice to speak to you after all this time. It's crazy, isn't it?
It doesn't feel like that long ago since we spoke, to be honest. I know it has been a long time, but it's the same with
maybe you're going to have to organise that big reunion eventually after all this, Sam. That'll be your next job.
Thanks, Jayne. So if I ain't got enough editing work to do now. Is there anything that you want to promote?
I mean, we've got like 30,000 followers on our theatres page, so we do quite well with our promo.
The Facebook page is what?
Yeah, it's Scunthorpe Theatres, and it tells you all the shows we've got going on, and obviously all the other events and the community stuff that we do as well. So it keeps everybody up to date. So if anybody's in the area, the Baths Hall, it's a great venue. We get some fantastic comedians and shows and singers. So it's been a pleasure. I've actually really enjoyed it, Sam.
Yes, I'm glad.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. I really appreciate it, for you helping me to essentially get the ball rolling on this. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me. Have a lovely evening, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Jayne.
You too. Good luck, and take care. All right.
Cheers, my love.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
So there you have it. That wraps it up for this episode of DeckTales. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've been entertained by the tales of laughter, camaraderie and the occasional stormy sea, don't forget to subscribe, rate and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to navigate the podcast waters and continue bringing you these fascinating stories. Before I sign off, if you'd like to share your own ship stories for future episodes, then I'd love to hear from you. Simply get in touch over the socials, because after all, the best stories often come from our listeners. As we navigate through the waters of life, remember to enjoy the journey as much as the destination, as well as those you choose to share the adventure with. I've been your captain, Sammy Catlin. Until next time, Fair winds, smooth sailing, and may your adventures be as unforgettable as those shared on DeckTales. Bon voyage.